What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 93 of the Best Self Blueprint. Before we get into the episode, I want to start by thanking you so much for tuning in. It means the world that people are getting value from this, and I will continue to be putting out content, so make sure to stay tuned. That being said, if you are not currently subscribed, please do me the favor of hitting that subscribe button. It'll help grow the channel. It'll help attract bigger guests. That way you get more experience, knowledge, insights from these bigger and bigger guests that we can have on. In addition to that, my ask throughout this video, if there's anything that you like that adds value to you, click that like button for me. If there's anything you have questions, comments, concerns about, throw it in those comments. And then if there's someone in your life that you know could benefit from hearing the material I'm going to go through today, share it with them. Only other thing I'll direct you to is all the best self happenings. There will be links and information in the description below. So please check all that stuff out. Anything that we can do to grow this community, make a bigger impact, that's the goal. So check it all out, do all the things. But without further ado, episode 93. All right, let's get into it, shall we? So thank you again for tuning in. I know I just said that, but I'll say it again. If you don't already know, the mission of this podcast is either on my own in solo episodes such as today, or with many amazing guests to help you move that dial towards becoming the best version of yourself, whatever that means to you. So today in the solo episode, I'll be reviewing the most recent part of the framework series. I just covered this last weekend in a workshop, and I like to make it a point to, for anyone who couldn't make it, didn't want to spend the money to go to it, I still want to get the information out there to you. It's a little less immersive, but I think it still gets the job done. So the Apple framework is what we're going to be covering today. And the main overarching concept is delayed gratification. So let's jump in, shall we? So if you ever come to one of my workshops, I make custom handouts. That's for note taking. That's for information. That way you don't just have to try to remember everything or bring your own notepad and notebook. But getting into it, the first page is actually about priming, so we'll skip that. If you don't know about priming, I've talked about it in many episodes. Priming is simply just making sure that your physical, mental, and emotional state is set up intentionally for whatever you're about to do. So before I even get into any of my workshops, we do priming. So physically, how's the posture? How's the breathing? How's the energy? Mentally, do you feel clear? Do you feel focused? Emotionally, do you feel calm? Do you feel centered? And are you ready to rock? But getting into the actual workshop content for the Apple framework. So like I was saying, it's all about delayed gratification. So inherently, when going for a big goal, making a big change, ego is a player in that game. It's a sense of self. Making sure that we fully understand the players of the game is a key component in winning the game, playing the game, enjoying the game. I started out by talking about Freud's pleasure principle. So for those of you who don't know, the actual definition of it is the psychic force that motivates people to seek immediate gratification of instinctual or libidinal impulses such as sex, hunger, thirst, and elimination. Basically, this is saying instant gratification plays a big role. What I started out by asking people is, in what ways has your own experience of Freud's pleasure principle, desire for instant gratification, affected your pursuit of goals or changes in your life? So that's the first question I'll pose to you. And whenever I go through these frameworks with you, feel free to grab a notepad and a pen and start working through and seeing how this plays out for you. So in what ways has that affected your pursuit? That's the first thing to think about, because ways that we've acted in the past lay a groundwork and a blueprint of what patterns may disrupt our ensuing pursuits in the future. So understanding the player of the game that is the ego, understanding the cons that that player brings to the game board, and then in the past, your personal experience with, the pleasure principle affecting and disrupting your pursuits what does that look like for you? So that's what we started out with. Then moving into just delayed gratification is a learned skill. It's just like, you know, some people inherently have bigger biceps or smaller biceps, but if you do enough bicep curls, you're going to get some nice looking biceps. Understanding that even though the mind isn't like a muscle you can see grow, there are still learned skills that can be developed through practice, through repetition, through intentionality. And delayed gratification is one of those. So the way I like to practice, we'll call it strengthening my delayed gratification muscle, is progressive time lengthened focus on process with rewards at the end of each time interval. A good way to explain this might be, let's say I'm trying to learn how to juggle. Well, okay, so I'll commit to practicing for 20 minutes, regardless of if I can end up juggling or not. At the end of that 20 minutes, I go take a break, do something fun as a little reward. And then when I come back, maybe the next time I'll go for 30 minutes. Okay, practice regardless of the reward, take a break, or sorry, instead of reward, regardless of the result, take a break, and then keep lengthening the time horizon of the actions and the habits regardless of the results. When you take the breaks, that's where you can analyze, okay, is the effort I'm putting in, are the actions I'm taking, the habits I'm doing, are they progressing me towards the goal, or do I need to readjust what actions I'm taking? But to develop delayed gratification, it's simply practicing delaying the gratification. It sounds so simple, but in a culture right now where I think, and this could be very wrong, but I saw somewhere recently that online the average attention span is 3.7 seconds. We live in a world where you can have most things you want at the click of a button, snap of the fingers, making sure that you're practicing off-putting the gratification and focusing on the due diligence of the process and making sure that you're laying every brick the right way in the right order to get the wall that you want, if we're going with the brick analogy. It is a skill. It is a skill you can learn, absolutely. And so thinking about for you with the goal that you have, the change that you're looking to make, what's a reasonable expectation of the delay you may be expecting in the gratification of the result? Now, the reason I called this the apple framework is because when you plant an apple seed, the only thing you probably actually care about is getting an apple. But when you plant an apple seed, the last thing to grow, the last end result of that process is the apple. So you have to go through the process. You have to follow the blueprint. You have to continue to monitor and analyze and make sure that that growth is happening in a way that will result in the bearing of the fruit. I actually go through, well, my layman's horticultural knowledge of what happens in the process of growing an apple tree. So step one, prepare the pot and soil. In my opinion, that's a lesson in make sure the environment around you, your physical environment, your social environment, is set up in a way that is conducive to even begin the journey that you're trying to pursue. Step two, prepare the seeds. So that to me is prepare yourself. Start to understand what is your intention? What are you trying to create or become? And then once you've prepared the environment, the external, you've prepared the seeds, the internal, now drop them seeds in that pot and soil, immerse yourself in that curated environment, and start the dang thing. After that, sustain growth conducive environment. So what I mean by that is, well, I'm going to just go into the life part. So apples aside for a second, just in the life part, sustain growth conducive environment. Once you get started on the process, it's easy to get enveloped in the process and forget about the seemingly minuscule environmental factors that aid in the pursuit. And so making sure that you stay aware of, is your environment continuing to be conducive? Does it continue to stimulate the growth that you're looking for? From there, monitor growth. I'm a big fan of just on my phone, I always have a habit tracking app. Some people are pen and paper. Some people I know have like a whiteboard that they track through. But one way or another, monitor your growth. One, it's a great way to know if things are not working, what might you have to change? Now that you have the data and you can analyze looking back what growth or lack thereof has been happening, you can make the changes. Two, it can keep you aware of the progress you're making. So when you feel stuck, you can look back and see that monitored growth and understand that, oh, yeah, I actually have come some way. From there, you move the seedlings outside. So my interpretation of this is sometimes you have to shift your environment to keep up with the growth. I thought about this in terms of, let's talk about jujitsu. If I've never done a jujitsu class in my life, I could reach out to a friend, that's my social environment, who's done jujitsu for a couple years, probably has a blue belt, and he can, or she can teach me a whole bunch of moves, tactics, ideas that will help me grow. But if I get to the point then where I am at a blue belt, I will have to shift my social environment and bring in a more equipped coach. Or let's say I'm at a gym, a gym that has base level equipment. I'm just getting into fitness and it has what I need to kind of do the fundamental moves. But then I decide to go to a pro bodybuilding show. Well, then I might have to go to a gym with more diverse equipment that'll hit the more fine-tuned muscles. Maybe I'll have to, again, get a more specialized coach. So all of that to say, sometimes you're going to have to shift the environment, physical environment, social environment, in order to keep up with the rate of growth that you're going at and just where you're at in the process. In alignment with all of that, remove all weeds, ward off all insects. Protect yourself, protect your environment, and then continue care for the tree during the growth. So continue to be aware of the habits, be aware of your blueprint, be aware of what you need to protect from, be aware of monitoring, understand what's working, understand what's not. And as you continue to push forward, when you take your breaks, when you take your rest, that is the time for analysis and care. So, in a nutshell, that's the process. So, I'll go through very quickly just what each of these are broken down because that was the outline. That's just the process, kind of line by line. Now I dig into a little bit of each of those in a little more depth. So, preparing the environment. Simple question to ask. What changes can you think of making in order to set up for pursuing your desired goal? People, places, equipment, supplies. What are the external, social, physical, environmental factors that you need to pre-establish in order to even begin your pursuit? Even something as simple as running. If I'm training for a race, if I really want to crush it, I'll hire a running coach. I will have a track or a trail or a treadmill set to go. Again, equipment, you got to have good running shoes. You might need a water bottle. Supplies, you might need some snacks. So thinking about what is the environment that needs to be set up to even flick over that first domino and start the process. And then in terms of yourself, what changes can you think of making to yourself in order to set up for pursuing your desired goal? What beliefs, what skills, what habits, what attitudes? What are the things that are currently a barrier to entry for you to even begin? And understanding that there are probably beliefs that you hold that will self-sabotage you inevitably at some point in the process. There may be a lack of skills that at some point will be an unpassable barrier or roadblock on your journey. Habits that you have might be destructive, toxic, distracting. Attitudes. There are all of these things within yourself that may completely block you from it. It may slow you down. It may veer you off track. And so really thinking about that, front load the process as much as possible. Step one is always awareness. So the more aware you are of what will hold you back internally and externally, and flipping that on its head, being aware of what will catalyze the process internally and externally, that's sharpening the axe before swinging at the tree. After that, immerse yourself into the curated environment. So once that initial prep work has been done, what will be your first productive action step? Maybe it's a bold action. Like if you're trying to get fit and healthy, maybe it's signing up for a race or a competition 6 months out, a year out, whatever it may be. So it may be a bold action. Maybe it's building the foundation. So what's the most fundamental habit or routine that you can start to implement that will be a fantastic first domino in the sequence? Otherwise, it could be a connection. So who's the first person you have to reach out to? A friend, a coach, a mentor, an advisor, in order to help you start the process. So thinking about if you're a social person who needs to be held accountable, probably a connection. If you're someone who is far more routine, you like certainty, okay, change one fundamental habit. If you're someone who likes excitement, variety, maybe go for the bold action. But thinking about what is the best first domino you can knock over that will just relay into a sequence of that said journey. From there, sustain and monitor your growth. So I already covered this one. How will you track your progress? I have friends who are spreadsheet nerds on their computers. I love that. That is not me. Among probably a lot of other people, I love habit tracker on my phone. I know people who they have a whiteboard and they track that way. I know people who have notebooks, so pen and paper, they track that way. But for you, how will you track your progress? Determine that early on and make sure you actually track your progress. Next step, shift environment as self evolves. So as you continue to reach new checkpoints along your journey towards your desired goal, what changes to your environment might you have to make? And this just goes back to prepare environment. It's a cyclical thing of, okay, you prepare your environment out the gate, you make progress, make the shifts needed. You make progress, make the shifts as needed. Again, people, places, equipment, supplies. As you progress, which of those may need to be altered, which of those may need to be taken out, put in, what does that look like? From there, continuously protect yourself and your environment. This is huge. And if you listen to the energy audit framework, that would probably do a fantastic job of going through this. But what weeds, so weeds, I'll call that the internal, and insects, the external, do you need to remove or ward off in order to ensure you get to your desired goal? So again, the internal, that would be just like we're talking about setting up your environment, external, and setting up yourself, internal, flip that on its head. Think about, so the people, the places, the equipment, the supplies, what are the physical and social environmental factors that will deter you? And what boundaries can you put in place? What processes can you put in place? What triggers can you put in place to catalyze the awareness to make sure that you ward off the things that will keep you from hitting your goal? Similarly, like I said, with the weeds, those internal weeds that grow, self-doubt, low self-esteem, low self-confidence, thinking about the beliefs, the attitudes, the effort that you put in, the skill sets that you have, all of these things that will deter you, proactively counteract the effect that those will have by eliminating them, setting boundaries. And I touch on this pretty much every time I talk about this area is there will be people in your life, like family. I'm very lucky. I don't see any need to like eliminate contact with a family member. I'm very blessed in that way. I have an amazing family. If you're listening, any of my family members, love you so much. If you have people in your life that you love unconditionally, but who you know are not good for you, that is your call to decide, do you eliminate them from your life or do you set boundaries with them in your life? The one I don't recommend is not setting any boundaries with people who are toxic. So just wanted to cover that quickly. But then after that, the last piece of the puzzle is maintain that process until the results appear. In order to maintain the process, I think about this in three ways. What will keep you motivated and inspired? What will keep you disciplined and accountable? And what will keep you progressing towards achieving that goal? So motivation and inspiration. Think about like what amps you up? What gets you excited? What generates that energy from within you to go do the dang thing? Discipline and accountability. Some people need an accountability partner. Some people, they just need a little solitude to make sure that they're reflecting and doing the things they need to do. Some people, it may be a YouTube video of David Goggins screaming at you to stay hard. Whatever it is for you, do it. Like leverage what you need to leverage. Pull the levers that you need to pull to stay moving. And then the last part is actual progression. Activity does not always mean productivity. You can run on a treadmill for hours and go nowhere, right? Now, you can argue that's very productive in terms of fitness, but you get what I mean. This is how will you analyze the blueprint you have to make sure that you're actually moving towards the desired result? That is the whole process. So now kind of getting into the last piece that I went over with everybody, which is a quote by Mike Hawkins that says, you don't get results by focusing on results. You get results by focusing on the actions that produce results. So if you noticed throughout this whole thing, the focus is on evolving internally and externally, minimizing and eliminating things that need to be minimized and eliminated internally and externally, and continuing to act on the blueprint that is set up for the pursuit. And if you continue to focus on progressing towards the destination, and each time you notice that either you're not going at the rate you want, you're not going in the direction you want, making those little pivots. I don't know about everyone else, but I always think of the episode of Friends with Ross and the couch when I say pivot. Anyways, making sure that you are hyper aware of the actions that will get the result and being intentional about analyzing and adjusting what needs to be adjusted until inevitably you hit the result. So Mike Hawkins, shout out for that amazing quote. And so I think of it as journey over destination for a few reasons. The first reason, the destination is a singular point. The journey is a timeline in which you will have to go through. And so making sure that the journey is something you feel good about. That doesn't mean you have to be happy all the time. That doesn't mean you have to feel like sunshine and rainbows and unicorns and all the good stuff, but at least feeling good about the journey, I think is huge, which means feeling good about the actions that produce the result. The reason I bring this up, journey over destination, is each time you trek on a journey, you're not guaranteed the destination. So when you plant the apple seed, you are not guaranteed an apple tree every seed you plant. But in planting enough seeds, following the process enough times, evolving the process enough times, delaying the gratification, baking in rewards to keep yourself motivated. If you do it enough times, it's unreasonable you won't get the result. And so thinking about, for you, are you going to just attempt it once and if you fail, throw your hands up and say it's not meant to be? Or do you actually commit to continuing the process until the deed is done, until the change is made, until the goal is hit? And that's a question you have to answer for yourself. There are times I've quit. There are times I've executed. And the only times I feel good about quitting are when I realize that I'm no longer aligned with the pursuit rather than I gave up. I stopped because I didn't have this process in place. I didn't have the will and commitment to execute. And to me, that is a feeling you want to avoid with every fiber of your being. And on the contrary, a big goal, really any big goal, I believe Alex Hormozy said this. It's going to be harder than you initially think. It will take longer than you initially think. And it will happen differently than you initially think. But it will be far better than you imagine. I had a friend that I just crewed for his 50-mile ultramarathon 2 weekends ago. And he knew it was going to be tough. He knew he was going to be fighting some demons. He knew it's an ultra. But even knowing it was going to be difficult, even knowing it was going to take a long time, I bet he would say, just being there with him and seeing the experience he had, it was probably even harder than he initially thought. It did take longer than he initially thought. And it did happen differently than he initially thought, and that all of us initially thought. But the feeling, that indescribable download I talk about that happens upon the execution of a big goal, a challenging goal that does take a long time, that does take a lot out of you. You do sacrifice, you do adapt. That is so much better than you can imagine. And I hope all of you, every single person who listens to this, especially if you've gotten to this point, I hope and pray that you experience over and over in your life that indescribable download, that beautiful experience that comes with hitting that execution, that accomplishment of a goal that challenges you and grinds away at you and makes you evolve as a person and makes you question yourself and overcome challenges. That is my hope for you. And my hope is that this process, this framework, it won't do it for you. It won't make it easy. There's a reason I still said it will be harder than you think, take longer than you think, happen differently than you think. Even with all of this, that will still hold true. But my hope is that in giving you this framework, it will front load and give you intention at the beginning to avoid some of this. It will help you control the controllables. There will still be things outside of your control, plenty of them. There will still be things that challenge you, plenty of them. But this, if followed, will help you control the controllables. And so that right there, that is the Apple framework. So really the last piece of this is, again, just kind of circling back to the initial delayed gratification. Practice delayed gratification in your life, whatever that may look like for you. Make sure that you're not giving into just dopamine city, where like all you care about is like getting stimulated all the time and getting gratified as quickly as possible. Fight against that pleasure principle. Make sure that you feel good about the pursuit, the actions you're taking, the beliefs that you hold, the skills you're developing, the attitude you have, the energy you're putting out. And I think a big part of that is delayed gratification, understanding that you don't need a cookie every time you take a step. Focus on the steps. Focus on enjoying them. Focus on being present for them. Delayed gratification, baby. Gotta love it. All right. So as we start to wrap this up, I do want to take a little time, just go over some of the best self happenings. If you've gotten to this point, thank you so much. Hopefully this added value. Like I said, if you like this video, hit the like. If you have comments, questions, concerns, hit the comments, all the stuff. But a couple of the best self happenings coming up. When this drops, it'll be Monday the 20th. So if you're hearing this Monday the 20th, tonight at 7 p.m. Central Time, I'm doing a free virtual nutrition fundamentals class on Zoom. If that's something that you're interested in, I will have the link to that in the description. Hopefully you see this in time. Hopefully you get to this point in the video. And then Frameworks Part 6 is called The Viewmaster. That will be on Saturday, June 29th, 10:30 to noon at the studio. We have a couple groups that have been starting up. We've been already doing the Best Self Sports Club Wednesdays from 5:30 to 7 p.m. Get outside, get active, do an activity, hang around other people who like to get outside and get active. Starting up in June, the first Monday of every month, we'll be doing the Best Self Book Club. That will be books on health, mindset, self-development, productivity, like anything that can be used to move that dial towards becoming the best version of yourself. That's the North Star. So any book that can help with that, we will decide as a book club which books we go read. Meditation classes have been happening monthly. That is with Coach Kyle Jackson. Shout out to him. Phenomenal last 2 classes. So that will be continuing. And then we have yoga classes in studio Tuesdays at 8:30 to 9:30 a.m. as well as 6 to 7 p.m. So jump in on the action, man. I always point the wrong way. We've got the apparel. That will be in the description. If you want to do private coaching with me, that's an option. And I do a free consultation for anyone who wants to improve their health, their mindset. They want to change some behaviors. Take advantage. Free consultation. Go nuts. And then lastly, stay up to date on the socials. So if you haven't, again, subscribe. Go check out our Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. There will be content on all of those, education, inspiration, all the stuff. But I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for being part of this Best Self community. That is my passion, is not just this being a business, but this truly being a community of people who want to live an extraordinary life, who want to pursue and become and embody the best version of who they can be in this life. So thank you. Thank you for continuing to listen. Thank you for continuing to support. And thank you for being you. Until next time, peace out.